sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X. Thus the
Pathless
were born, using their ultra superpowers.
Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit, but this is what Pathless feels like, in the best possible way. Hey folks, WizkidAce here. Have you ever wondered if a game was made by combining Journey, Shadow of the Colossus, and Breath of the Wild? No? Well, don't worry, cause Giant Squid has asked and answered that question for us. Pathless, or should I call it with its official name, The Pathless, is an artistic indie adventure game developed by Giant Squid and published by Annapurna Interactive. At this point, most of the indie games seem to be published by Annapurna Interactive, I mean the artistic kind of indie games, including the PC version of Journey, so I'm not surprised there. Pathless is like a spiritual successor of Journey, not only because they have the same art director, Matt Nava, and the same composer, Austin Venturi, it's also because Pathless' developer Giant Squid was actually founded by the ex-staff of Journey Studio, that game company. And well, considering the last video I made was on the PC version of Journey, I thought why not come back with Pathless? So, what is the Pathless about? A tyrant has taken over a magical island and killed all the gods on that island, including the gods' followers. Apparently because the gods were too nice and the island was too happy and prosperous. So you play as this mysterious hunter who's arrived on this island and plans to save the land by freeing the gods and defeating the big bad god. All you have to help you on your journey is a magical bow and your eagle friend. So basically you go zooming across the pretty open world, solving puzzles and fighting bosses so that you can finally defeat the big bad guy. The gameplay and the premise are very simple, but it's very effective and enjoyable. While Journey was a linear game with a set path you had to take, Pathless lets you freely explore the world and do things at your own pace. That's why the name The Pathless. Get it? Because unlike Journey, you have to find your own way and do your own thing. And they really want you to find your own way because Pathless does not have a fast travel system. Despite being open world, the game doesn't really need a fast travel system. That's because the simple act of moving around in Pathless is extremely fast and fun. That's due to the core mechanic of this game, which is sprinting. But this isn't just holding a button to go fast kind of sprinting. You have to manage your stamina and boost yourself by shooting these spirit emblems that are floating all over the place. So moving isn't just fast, but it's also very engaging, and that's important. The world itself is very beautiful with different biomes and changing weather, and this keeps the travel and exploration experience pretty entertaining. If you get tired of land travel, you can just glide across the pretty landscape, sort of like Breath of the Wild, but with the help of an eagle instead of a hand glider. There's no minimap either, or even a compass. So instead, you locate objectives using spirit vision that highlights areas of interest around you. So finding your way is more engaging than simply running around staring at a mini-map, which you can't even do because there is no mini-map. The way you progress in the game is by completing puzzles which grant you tokens. These tokens are used to activate towers, and activating all the towers in a region reveals the boss and you can face it. And each area has more puzzles and tokens than you actually need to progress, and that's a great thing. Because you can basically goof around and do whatever puzzles you feel like in order to beat the game. But if you do collect all the tokens in an area, after beating the boss of that place, you will be rewarded with special passives such as stamina regen, faster sprint, etc. But you don't need to do these in order to progress the game. These are just there for like a completionist run. The puzzles themselves are pretty simple and fairly easy to solve, but they aren't a pushover either. You'll have to think and deliberate a bit in order to solve them. They maintain somewhat of a balance between not being annoying and too easy, at the same time not being frustratingly hard. Solving these puzzles usually involves lighting torches with your arrows, activating switches, moving objects with your eagle, and hitting targets using mirrors, and so forth. The game also has optional puzzles that do not give any tokens. These instead reward you with extra yellow spirit shards that act as XP in the game. Collecting enough of these shards, which can also be just found lying around the place, will upgrade the number of flaps that your eagle can do when you're gliding. Basically functioning as a double jump, more of a multi-jump to be precise. You gain enough flaps by just doing the main puzzles or beating the bosses, so at no point you're actually required to grind to level up your flaps so that you can do some weird complicated puzzle. Instead, it just serves as an additional incentive so that people would be encouraged to explore more. You can also run into a boss even in the open world. There are these huge red storms that show up on the overworld. These storms move around the landscape looking for you. If they don't find you, they just dissipate and reappear elsewhere. They're fairly easy to avoid, but if you do get caught in them, it initiates a stealth sequence with the local boss. You will be locked in an area with the boss, which are these giant dinosaur-ass looking monsters, and they'll proceed to search for you with their weird spotlight eyes. They only notice you if you move inside their spotlights, even if they're right next to you, so it's not that difficult to get away from them. You need to find your eagle inside these areas in order to be able to escape, because you get separated from the eagle when you enter the storm. If you get caught by the boss though, you won't die, because you can't die. Instead, you'll just lose your XP shards. So it's still best to avoid being caught. This is the only way the game actually penalizes you, because you don't have an HP bar and you just can't die. But that's not quite a bad thing though, because the game handles it pretty well, and also not dying means that the game's flow and immersion are not broken all the time, which apparently was the original intention of the developer. Getting caught also hurts your eagle, and you have to pet her to recover after escaping the storm. And this is by far the best part of the game according to me. This is extremely cute, and honestly I've spent way too long doing this even when I didn't have to. I mean, the eagle even nuzzles you if you pet her at the right spot. I can't help it. The real meat of the game lies in the boss fights. Well, if you ignore the eagle petting, of course. Once you activate the 3 towers in a region, the boss is revealed and you can start the hunt. The first part of the boss fight involves chasing the boss through the region while shooting its weak spot, which are like these giant eyes. Once you chase the boss down and corner it, the real fight begins. In the second part of the boss fight, you enter the boss arena and, well, you have to navigate around it while shooting the boss's weak spots again in order to bring it down. These fights feel great and feel a lot like Shadow of the Colossus. Only difference being, you're not actually trying to kill the boss, but trying to save them. Once you defeat the boss, you free it from its corruption, turning it back into a friendly giant. There are 4 corrupted gods to free, which allow you to face off against the God Slayer himself, which I will not be showing in this video, so don't worry about spoilers. Just take my word for it that it's a great fight. It's not just the gameplay that's great in Pathless. The wonderful visual and sound design are what brings the game to life. It's the same art director, as well as the same music composer as Journey, so it really shows. There's so much care and attention paid to the animations, characters, as well as the environment. The world of Pathless is exceptionally beautiful, and you just want to explore and soak it all in. They also use a lot of environmental storytelling in order to show us how the Godslayer, a tyrant, has destroyed the culture, civilization, and the people of this magical island. There are just ruins of temples, villages, and even memories and codexes that you can interact with in order to know the story of this land. The music is wonderful and helps you feel the joy of prancing around, the tension of the boss fights, or just the general despair of this broken land. I'm gonna just shut up so that you can have a listen. Pathless' OST is available on Spotify and Bandcamp, so you should definitely check it out, or better yet, buy it like I did. Mwah, just a chef's kiss is all I can give it. This game is just great all around. The only negative thing I can think of, if you can call it that, is that the game is way too relaxing. I even fell asleep a few times in my chair while I was just exploring around. So yeah, I don't really have that much negative to say about this game. But one thing I would like to mention is that this game's only 10 hours long, and that too on a completionist playthrough. And the game costs you about $45 on the Epic Games Store. And it's definitely worth it, don't get me wrong, but maybe if the game was a bit cheaper, about $30, it might encourage more people to purchase the game, considering its playtime. I don't have access to their sales data, so I could be completely wrong, but I myself bought it for $30 when it was on sale on Epic Games Store. Before I wrap up, let's have a quick look at the game's performance and settings. I played this game myself on an AMD 5700 XT, which is a mid-range graphics card, at 1440p and maxed out settings. The game ran very smoothly and the frame rate was almost always about 60 FPS. And I didn't run into any artifacting, frame drops, or stuttering. As far as I could tell, I didn't even encounter any bugs or crashes during my playtime either. Of course, your mileage may vary, but Pathless seems to be a relatively well-optimized, well-performing, and relatively bug-free game. So let's have a look at the settings menu. The game offers the standard game, audio, and graphics options, and the game options does let you change things like camera shake and motion blur, which are super annoying, and it's good that you can turn them off. But weirdly enough, there are no keybind options whatsoever in Pathless. Pathless doesn't use a lot of different inputs or complicated combinations like a fighting game, so it's not a big issue, but it's still pretty annoying. Audio settings have different volume sliders for everything, so that's always useful. For some reason, some games don't have that, and that just confounds me. Graphics options are fairly decent, and it lets you change VSync, anti-aliasing, as well as full screen options. But they're not very detailed though. Most of the settings just use the low, medium, high, ultra format without providing a lot of detail on what's actually happening, like what anti-aliasing the game's using or how much texture memory it's utilizing, etc. And like a lot of the post-processing options are bundled together, so there's no separate anisotropic filtering, ambient occlusion, or bloom setting, etc. The game isn't performance intensive and runs pretty well, so the lack of these settings isn't that big of an issue. But these options are very useful to have, especially for tuning the performance on lower power machines, which a lot of people use. The other important thing is that Pathless doesn't have any accessibility options such as color blindness. So your experience of this game could be significantly impacted if your vision is color deficient, especially because points of interest are highlighted in red, and that's how you have to navigate in the game. In conclusion, The Pathless is a fun, beautiful indie game that I really enjoyed a lot, and I highly recommend. The gameplay is simple and charming, while the art and music are simply mesmerizing. My favorite part of the game, other than the eagle petting of course, are the boss fights. They've managed to make these fights exciting spectacles without giving us health bars or the fear of death. I love such artistic indie games because they're just oozing with passion and creativity, unlike a lot of AAA games which have lately just turned into heavily focus-tested, corporate-sanctioned, crunch-fueled, bland Skinner boxes that want to suck as much money as they can from their customers and then call them whales, dolphins, and other kind of marine animals. Sorry, I digress. But this is what Pathless is, and if you really like what you see, you should definitely go check Pathless out. The PC version of Pathless is currently only available on Epic Games. It's not on Steam, and it's on Epic for 45 USD, 60 Australian, or your regional equivalent. This game doesn't have any microtransactions whatsoever, or shady DLC, so don't worry about that. If you like this game and or games like this, then I can also recommend you Shadow of the Colossus, Journey, Abzu, and even Breath of the Wild if you haven't played any of them yet. Alrighty then. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe if you feel like it, and even click the bell icon. It apparently helps. I don't know, I got no subscribers yet. Now, if you excuse me, I need to go back to doing something very important. Alright, back to petting the eagle. Pet, 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 pet. Pet the eagle. I think I need some help.
Chemical